Imagine living a life where every day could be your last, where the line between your true self and the criminal underworld blurs. This is the reality Matt Pitcher faced as an undercover officer, navigating a world of danger and deception from the streets of Harrisburg, Pennsylvania, to the dark alleys of Los Angeles. Matt's journey is one of intrigue and peril. From a childhood dream of joining the CIA to facing the brutal realities of undercover work with the Charlotte Mecklenburg Police Department, Matt has seen it all. He bought drugs, picked up prostitutes, and infiltrated mob families, risking his life every step of the way. He shares the harrowing experience of losing friends in the line of duty, the intense pressure of maintaining his cover under interrogation, and the mental toll that comes with living a double life. Matt's story is a testament to the courage and resilience of law enforcement officers who protect our communities from the shadows. Join us as we uncover the gripping tales of undercover operations, the battle with inner demons, and the unwavering spirit of those who stand as guardians of justice. This is Gold Shields. Stay tuned.
Gold Shields brings true stories from law enforcement, the military, true crime authors, and first responders. Experience the dedication, danger, and emotional toll with the heroes themselves. These gripping tales of true crimes, true stories, and true heroes are all here on Gold Shields.
Hey, welcome back to Gold Shields. This is Dan Murphy along with my partner in crime, Tom Smith. How you doing, buddy?
Good, partner. What's happening today?
You know, I'm excited. We have this guy who's a little on the shy, reserved side, a little thin on the resume, but we're going to see if we can squeeze some interesting conversation with him out. And he's cracking up in the green room because that is exactly the opposite of who this guy is. We're honored to have a great guest this morning, as we are so honored all the time. But this guy's awesome. Can't wait to hear more about him from him. And Tom, tell us about him. What do we got this morning?
You know, we've had the privilege and honor of having so many high-level undercover officers on our show, you know, from Jay, Lou Velozzi, Giovanni and Dutch we just had on, and Matt fits right into that just elite category of doing something that even as police officers, we wouldn't do. You know, as cops, detectives or whatever, we do a lot of crazy crap, doing hidden doors and going through them, and all that stuff. And undercover work is something that, yep, you want it, you got it, man. And to do it at the highest level that they have done and Matt has done is something to get out there. And we have the honor of having Matt Pitcher, who has done it. I mean, we're going to go over. I don't even want to give anything away. I want to wait until we start the show of what Matt actually did. So, Matt, thank you so much for joining us on Gold Shields, partner, and it's a pleasure.
Thank you. I've been looking forward to being on this one. Like I just could not wait. This would be good. And you guys were talking about me, but I'm almost like meeting a celebrity here, because I've been following you guys for a while. I've read your resumes, and you say mine's good. I'm equally impressed by yours by far.
Well,
thank you.
Appreciate that, and we'll send you the $50 for doing that later.
Memo's great.
So, Matt, you mentioned to us earlier you had grown up in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania. Oh, tell us a little bit about what brought you on this path towards going into law enforcement.
Yeah, you mentioned earlier with UCs being kind of unique. Every UC has to have one thing in common. That's just limited brain cells. If you're smart, you're just not going to go into it. There's just no. I've never met a smart UC. Never will. I promise. So, law enforcement are not just cop work, but in general, CIA had always kind of fascinated me, even as a kid. Very quick background. So, in elementary school, I was bullied a lot. My first fight was in first grade. That I saw somebody else getting beat up. And I thought it was a good idea to step in with another first grader getting picked on by 3 fifth graders. I stepped in, and the kid did not get beat up. He got away. I got pummeled. I learned that if you're going to step into a fight, you probably should learn how to fight too. It's an important part of that. Otherwise, it just hurts. So that I took my first L in first grade.
We've all had an
Yeah,
L.
exactly. I took my share in elementary school. After that, I was having trouble in school and ended up having to go see a psychiatrist and all that. Said, "Oh, I'm learning disabled. There's a nerve that's just not functioning in your brain yet. It probably will over time." But my reading and writing and that was slow. And so I had to go to remedial classes for that and then regular classes for everything else. And as you can imagine, at that age, kids can be a bit ruthless. So my daily playground thing was getting beat up. So I think that's kind of what led me to the law enforcement side is like, I don't know if you're born with it or if that's what caused that protective side, that I wanted to be able to protect other people and not have them, go through things. So from there, I kind of started, I guess, middle school-ish, learning about the CIA from movies to some degree, which is never a good thing.
But they're so
Yeah,
true to
exactly, right? So the idea of going all over the world, pretending to be somebody else and doing all this crazy stuff, being a spy, like, well, that's got me written all over it. Now, they did say they wanted you to be able to speak a bunch of different languages. Like, well, that's going to be a problem. But
You had to master English
yeah,
first.
exactly. Or at least get a little bit good at I ended up getting the opportunity also to meet somebody in the CIA from my parents, and come to find out it's not that much different than law enforcement. I thought it was at the time. Basically, you do very little undercover work in the CIA, even as a spy. Where that is mostly meeting with what we would call informants or sources, and typing and typing and typing and then typing some more. So after learning that, I was like, you know what, maybe that's not quite where I should be. So I went to college to play football, where I was lucky enough to get my 8th severe concussion. So that was a lot of fun there, and wasn't mature enough yet to realize I should have stayed in college to get my degree. My junior year, I had a 3.0. I was doing good, but decided to pack it up. And at the time, my parents were living in Wilmington, North Carolina, while I was my whole time in college. And at that time, this was the late 90s. Wilmington was like the second largest movie studio outside of LA. Not many people know that. This is when Dawson's Creek was being filmed in Wilmington and that kind of thing. I had actually gone there because I found out you could be an extra and get paid $50 a day to be in movies. It's like, well, that's the coolest thing ever. So I go to Fincannon, the casting directors, and say, hey, I want to sign up to get paid that $50 and be in a movie. And the lady there was like, well, did you ever think about acting? And well, no, but I'd be willing to give that a shot too. Why not, right? I'm here. So she ended up giving me a list of agents, and I called a couple of them and got picked up by a couple of agents and started doing some small time acting type stuff, and actually really enjoyed it out of nowhere. So by my junior year, I quit college. I go out to, you guys are going to love this one a lot. I am, because again, not very smart, undercover. I go out to LA to make it in movies. Why not? I mean, that should be easy enough. Everybody does it.
What could go
No
wrong?
one does that.
Yeah.
No one does.
The other thing that, if you're from the East Coast, should have known, did not know, or didn't care, LA is really expensive. I mean, it is not cheap. It's hard to find a place to live out there. Luckily, there's a place in LA called Compton. I don't know if you guys have ever heard of this, but things are cheaper in Compton.
Wow.
Yep.
Well,
I found this motel that was owned by a Hispanic family. It was pretty much still standing for the most part. And I get a room there for a few months. And during this time, there was an earthquake, first earthquake I've ever been through, out at Joshua Tree. It wasn't actually in LA, but it wasn't far off, and it hit pretty hard. It was like a 7 or something to Joshua Tree. And this was 2-3 o'clock in the morning. I have no idea what to do. So I call my brother up, who at this point is police officer in Wilmington, North Carolina. So of course he's had a lot of experiences because you hear the East Coast gets earthquakes all the time. So I call him and say, "What am I supposed to do? I'm having an earthquake." And he, "Oh, get in the bathroom or in a closet." Yeah, that's not good advice. I didn't know any better. So I did that at first. Then I got uncomfortable with that. And I said, "Forget this. I'm going outside. I don't want to be in this building when it comes down." So I go outside, and outside for a couple seconds when I hear about 5 or 6 rounds go off, decide, all right, I don't want to be outside. I'm going back inside. Within a week of that, I decided it was time to come home. I'd also been talking to my brother during that time, and he's telling me all the great stories, all the law enforcement stories. He's getting in foot chases periodically and all that good stuff. And I was like, I know this is what I want to do. I just got to go ahead and do it. And I wanted to go to Charlotte Mecklenburg Police Department, Charlotte, North Carolina. I wanted to be in the city, wanted that extra. And I knew at that point, like when I got in the police department, I knew I wanted to go into to undercover work. Again, limited brain cells. Like I always wanted that long-term deep cover experience. I didn't realize, the way I did things are not the way deep cover is supposed to be done and not the way it's normally done. But it's kind of a learning ground. We'll get to that part. But so I take off from LA, drive back in my green Ford Escort wagon, which I do have a claim to fame that I was in Beverly Hills in my Ford Escort wagon, which was technically my mom's car that she let me borrow. And I actually got to meet Julia Roberts. She was at a red light right next to me, and I could tell she was checking me out the whole time. It was embarrassing. Yeah,
Obviously.
I mean, she didn't look at me once, but I could tell. Is that peripheral vision something?
And that car is just a magnet.
In Beverly Hills, please, that's all you see. So I get back to the East Coast, and I'd already put the paperwork in for Charlotte, and you know how it is. It takes about 6 months before to get through everything, the lie detector test, polygraph. And when I'm putting it in, I have to meet with the sergeant who's over my case. And he's like, "Well, what do you want to do when you get in the police department?" And obviously I knew right to get. I said, "Well, once I'm able, I want to be on the SWAT team. I want to do undercover, and I want to be a chaplain." Those 3. He looked at me like I just was insane. He goes, "I hear the first 2 a lot, but I've never heard the third one thrown in there with the first." I said, "Well, that's what I want." So get through that, go into the academy, and I got lucky. Like the way, I don't know how New York does it, but in Charlotte, the way the academy's done, everybody gets rankings and different things, your firearm proficiency, your fighting, your schoolwork. Kind of you have in all the districts in Charlotte, get a copy of it, and when it's time to basically graduate the academy or get close to it, they do an NFL draft. And depending, certain districts are getting so many people, and it's whoever's turn is up first gets it, and it goes down the line. The problem with that is, like, I wanted to go to what at the time was called David 3, and that was, the craziest district in Charlotte. Obviously, young and dumb. But it's where you're going to get in the foot chases, the fights every single night, and do all of that. The district I did not want to go to was Baker 2. That was your money area. That was, you're dealing with car accidents every day, and that's about it. Some minor stuff. So I got Baker 2. As right? So I'm like, we have a month left in the academy. Like, oh man, I can't believe it. Like, this is going to be really hard. I'm not going to be able to build my resume up to get into Vice. Which I think I still could if you just have to work hard. You can always do it. But I got lucky. Like 2 days before I was graduating, the sergeant in David 3 comes up to me and is like, "Hey, would you be interested in coming to David 3? And I was like, "Oh, yes, please. I'll do anything." And he's like, "Well, we have a senior officer who, he's only got like 5 years left, and he kind of wants to take it easy for his last 5, understandably. So we want to make a trade and send him to Baker 2 and take you." So I was like, absolutely. If you can pull that off, I'd be, and you're dead. So I got lucky. It happens, and I ended up going to David 3, and it helped make my career big time. It was just a lot of fun as a kid. We were on foot chases every single night. This was back in the day when you still had people selling on the street corners and that kind of thing. A lot of fights. There were good and bad parts with that.
So you're there, but you still have this itch for undercover work. That is just running through your veins to get to where you are. And you know what? I give you credit because we all did that. You always go into your career with what you want to do. Detective route, sergeant's route, undercover, whatever. And you wouldn't let that go no matter where you ended up. And I'm sure you got to act, right? So the acting came back into play.
So my stuff. That's good.
So that's still running through your veins, and it comes up, right?
Yeah. And so, again, not smart. I had my sergeant this time, well-intended, not a good sergeant. Just didn't understand the job a lot of times, I guess you would say. And so, you remember the SARE model when that was real popular? Scan something, I don't even remember what it is. Is real big with community policing, but it was scan, analyze, respond, and assess, or something like that. I may have just hit it. It was real close to that, if that's not it. So that's what they wanted. Everybody coming up with these models. Like, that looked real good to the chief, to everybody on down, that you're doing a SARE project. So I created a SARE project. Obviously, street corners were really bad for us. Lots of dopers. They need to be gone. I was going to go undercover and have a marked unit close by. That was 2 guys I went through the academy with. That would do the takedown right after I make a buy. I did this within 6 months of being off of FTO training. The dumbest, no sergeant in the world should have ever let me do that. I don't like anybody listening that's getting into law enforcement. Don't do this. This was dumb.
Yeah.
You'll hear me say that a lot. But so he lets me do it, and that's when I started first on my undercover work, just buying these street level $20 rocks of crack cocaine. And then they'd come in and pick them up. I almost got myself robbed a couple times. Like I saw one instance, I pulled over on Kenneth Street. It was one of our worst streets. I flagged a couple guys down, and I could see him coming up in my rear view or my side view mirror. And then I see into the waistband. I was like, oh no, and floored it. There were a couple ones like that where you see the guy come out of the woods up to the side of the vehicle, and you're like, oh, son of a, getting out of there. But I had no business doing this, and I'm doing this at 11 to 2 o'clock in the morning, which obviously are prime hours to also get jacked. So real smart. But other thing that, for whatever reason, I developed quickly able to get informants and work informants. That was another thing that I enjoyed. I think part of it is I had some compassion for a lot of the informants, especially at this point. A lot of them, were addicted to drugs. When you actually had a conversation with them, you saw just how awful their life, like how bad they wanted their life to be different. I mean, it was heartbreaking a lot of times. So I had a lot of success with informants, and ended up, they kind of basically created a position for me in David 3. So my sole function was to work informants, to get search warrants and that kind of thing, and then also do undercover work, buying drugs and picking up prostitutes. So,
well, let's elaborate on that last line. Speaking to them in such a way that enabled a criminal prosecution of those prostitutes,
yes.
not picking up prostitutes.
Sorry, that's absolutely correct.
Yeah, it kind of came out a little different than I think you intended.
Making a case on each person.
How was your night? I got some drugs. I picked up a couple of prostitutes. It was a typical night at work.
Well, yeah, exactly. You know what happens too. You take off, and I'm sure you guys have had the same kind of thing where, so the undercover, you get the prostitute in the car, and you have a signal, right, with your takedown unit that, okay, case is made. And when I say case is made, it's conversation. You can't come out and say, I want sex for $20. If you come out and say that, it's entrapment, case is ruined. So there's this game that goes back and forth. And then the minute that you get her to say what you need her to say, that, okay, I've got the case, I've got the prostitution, you give this signal and you want those blue lights on immediately, right? You want to get pulled over that second and get this over with. And if your team that's doing the takedown is mad at you or just wants to be funny, it is amazing how long it can take those blue lights to go on. And most of the prostitutes are antsy to get things going. So they don't care if you're still driving. So you have to be really, really careful. I've had it to a point where they were messing with me, Brad, and I just stopped in the middle of the street, got out of the driver's side, and made them turn the lights on for that because I stopped in the middle of traffic. The worst one that I had, so there was a prostitute walking on the side of the road. Prostitute had a wig in a bag that he was holding, and pull up, and he doesn't speak much English, and so we're using visual signs to go back and forth and make a case. Sure, you can understand what visual signs they would be, and eventually get it. He's arrested. My sergeant, who's quite the comedian at the time, decides to take a picture of the two of us side by side. Like, the guy was really nice when he got arrested too. And then he makes it into a Christmas card, sends it to everybody, including my wife. My wife and I got a Christmas card for Christmas.
You know, cops' sense of humors are just not like anybody else. They're not. The hits, the games are not like normal people.
Exactly.
They're not. They're vicious. They're nasty. They're funny as hell, but some imaginations that we've all worked with throughout the years, for sure.
And if you don't take it, you're only opening up the door to see it, more of it. You better just take it and laugh at it.
Deflect. That's exactly what you do. Like, we used to laugh all the time, like, deflect.
Yeah.
So,
because if they see it gets to you,
then
trouble.
you're done. Oh, it's over.
Yep.
So I did.
So
this was about 2003. I want to say. It would have been real close to that. Got married in 2004, and then I did that until 2007. So 2007 is kind of the highlight and low light of my law enforcement career. That year started with two of my good friends in the district with me were ambushed and executed, shot in the back of the head by a coward who I will never say his name. Obviously, you know how that scars bad. That was also a wake-up call for me that I had kind of gotten complacent. Like, I was doing all the street-level stuff and hadn't pushed myself to go to vice and narcotics. I was like, well, I'm doing this here. It's going really well. Maybe I just got too comfortable is pretty much what it came down to. So I kind of opened my eyes a little bit, and that late fall, well, actually a bit early winter, they put an opening in for vice and narcotics. I did not get first one, but then like a week or two later, they contacted me and said, hey, we're having another opening. Will you take it? I was, absolutely, I'm in. So I started vice then, and I will give our vice and narcotics squad, sorry, there's a noise outside, in general, a ton of credit the way we do things. We have in order to get in, you have to take a test. They also do normal stuff that everybody does, your polygraph, psychological, all that kind of thing. But then once you're in, you spend 3 months with an FTO, and you have book work. So you have your basically case law that you're studying all the time and that kind of thing, as well as training with an FTO and basically going whatever they want. You're working 12 to 14-hour days learning at that point. Like, anything that anybody's got going on, you're going to jump on it and be at it, just learning, which I know a lot of places don't do that, so I was extremely thankful that they do here. That was really good. One of the first things that I had to do with my first FTO was he took me to a mall, and he's like, all right, you're going to walk away with somebody's phone number, but you can't try to make it a date or anything like that. You've got to come up with another reason as to why you need their phone number. And I did a whole survey thing. Like, I was a college student that had to do a survey thing, and they said, would you also be willing to give your phone number if I had any more questions, anything like that? So eventually, someone will give your number for that, and went about that way.
That's pretty interesting. That field test to see how convincing you can be and how much trust you can gain from somebody, right?
And think on your feet. Like, because, the easy way to try to go about it is just trying to pick up every single girl until one of them finally says yes. Your odds are pretty good there. At some point, somebody's going to say yes. So what if she's 90? It doesn't matter that she's 90 years old. You got the yes.
Someone's going to feel bad for you at some point.
Doubtful. So I do the 3 months with the FTO. My last phase of the FTO, I'm riding with a guy and working one of his cases, and it's a brand new case. He's just starting out. Basically, we get up at 6 o'clock in the morning, and I'm sure you know the routine. Get on the guy's house, and the goal is just to follow him for the day, see who he meets with, that. So we sit up on him, we see him meet with somebody, we think they did a transaction, so we start following the other guy, because the goal is take that guy off and then see if we can flip him back to the other guy. Same old, same old. So we're following ways, and finally it's my turn to be on the eye following him, and anybody that doesn't know, when somebody says they're on the eye, it means they're not maybe directly behind them, but they're the one telling where the vehicle's going and have an eyeball on the vehicle. So we're driving, and the decision's made, all right, let's go ahead and pull them over. So they call in a marked unit. I see the marked unit get behind me. I get on the radio, say, hey, I see a left turn here. I'm going to make the left. After I make the left, you'll be directly behind you. You can pull them over. And I'd already called out a violation that the guy did, so he had a reason for the stop. So I go to make the left turn. At the same time I do that, apparently I did not get out on the radio. And you know how the old radios, you wouldn't know if you got out. Sometimes it didn't beep or anything like that. You thought you got out and you did. I go to make the left. The margin puts on his blue lights and smashes right into my door to go around me on the left-hand side. F with the bad guy right in front of me. I will say the bad guy did get out, come back and check on me to make sure I'm all right, and say, hey, I'm going to give him my information, let him know that the cop hit you. I thought that was very nice of the guy. I also felt really good about ruining my FTO's case on that day. That was pretty way to end your FTO period right there. Yeah, and
this is the imperfect
What's
world.
that?
This is the imperfect world of police work. It ain't like TV, guys. This is real life. You're driving around. You got your eyes on the car in front of you, all the traffic around you. You're trying to transmit on the radio, try to think tactically, strategically, all this kind of stuff. And one little thing goes wrong, and it's a domino effect. And it happens. It happens where even you do a search warrant. You hit the door, you hit it. You finally go running through the door. And one time we ran right into a closet. Like 4 of us ended up in a closet because we had so much momentum. And you laugh about it, but it's like, hey, this is the imperfect world we live in,
Yep.
right?
Oh, when I first got on the police department and I was with an FTO there, this was back in the day where, Vice had a search warrant. They would call the district because they needed a uniform, and that one would go through the door first. And well, that's what every rookie had to go through. Like, that was your job, so that you get experiences. You're the first one through the door, 3 days on the job. All right, let's see what you got. And I remember mine.
Wow.
Like, he hit the door, I ran straight to the back of the house, didn't see it, and ran into the kitchen where they had let the sink flood over to the point where it rotted out the floor, and I fell right through the floor, like 3 feet.
Yeah.
Another champion.
Those are the things you don't see on TV when you're a young guy and you're watching TV and you're like, oh, I want to do that. Those scenes aren't on TV.
Thank goodness there wasn't body cam. I'd still be seeing that video today.
Oh, man.
My first foot chase was my second night on the job, and my FTO still, like, he's a good friend of mine now. He's the best street cop I've ever met. I was fresh out of the academy, so I still had the Bates, very nice shoes, right, that you polish, look really, really nice. Yeah, not made for running at all, even though we ran in the academy with them. It had been raining that night. First, the guy kicks me. I'm like, hey, he kicked me. FTO, just as cool as can be and calm. Well, we should probably chase after him. So take off, and I fell like 5 times, slipping on the baits. Academy, they never taught us how to go over fences. That never came up somehow. So obviously my FTO did the right thing where you put it on your vest and just roll it. Super quick, super easy. I think I tried to hurdle it and fell on my face. Got back up and fell again. But we went back and listened to the mic pack then, and all you hear is
That was the entertainment.
No, it was.
The calls, we didn't have body cams like you just said, but we had the recordings, which were always
yeah.
fun.
And he also thought for some reason it was important that the whole squad got to hear it. That there was a good learning moment.
Again, warped sense of humor.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So listen, Maddie, I am so, I have a couple of things written down and stuff you did in your career that is just earth shattering, in situations you were in. And, that's why I'm glad you just kind of teed it up with where you came from and going through things that all of us have gone through. We all started on the street. We all started running around and chasing guys and falling. We all did it. No one's exempt from that. And then you get to a point in your career where you're doing some wild stuff you never thought to do, and you look back like we're doing now and you laugh. But all of that makes you ready or gets you ready for what you were about to do. And I just want to dive into, one of your big cases that I think took about 2 years to do, and you were heavily into a couple of mob families and organizations. So let's get from where we all started with falling over each other to where you eventually became and became so good at.
Yeah, so I had gotten into vice and narcotics, get through my training. I worked the Gangster Disciples case, which is a pretty heart-wrenching case, but I have an informant. Like, I started working in the bars, some, like, that's obviously a gold mine for undercovers. That's where you can start to pick up people, and you may not end up doing buys in the bar, but get the connections to go do buys elsewhere and that kind of thing. So I started working in there, and I actually started buying from a bouncer at one club, lock him up, and then informant introduces me to a stripper. And I get one buy-in with her, and literally the same day I do that buy with her, I go out and play football that night and blow out my ACL. Like, just a complete tear, can't walk on the leg. End up having to go to surgery immediately, so I'm out. I pushed it and came back. This would have been in March. I was back by August. Obviously, vice and narcotics is a cutthroat world. Your informants, if you're gone that long, they move on. They're not going to wait for you. They're either had to go to jail because they had charges to answer for, or they're finding someone else that's going to pay them. That's just the name of the game. So I come back and now I'm scrapping. I've got to come up with something. I tried calling a few people. I'm not getting anywhere. Got a little bit desperate. I was like, well, I'm just going to call this stripper. Like, I didn't have that informant anymore, so I couldn't do that intro back in. So I was just going to have to cold this one and see what's what. So I call up and say, hey, man, I don't know if you remember me. You opened me up before. I could really use another hookup right now. And to my disbelief, she's like, sure. And has me meet her in Ballantyne, which is the nicest area in Charlotte. So I was a little confused by that. And go meet her. She's in this green bug, like the easiest to spot vehicle in the whole world. Never seen a drug dealer do a deal in a green bug. Like, why would you? It's just the worst car to ever do it. But I go in, do the deal with her, and y'all know how deals go. Everybody is super anxious, super nervous, and it's get the deal done and get out, right? Because it's everything from could be police to this could be a robbery, and get out. Everybody's scared. Every drug deal is the same way. That's just the way it is. She's not. She's calm. She doesn't want to leave. She wants to talk. She's in school. Just starts talking. I'm sitting there holding the 8-ball, which is about 3 grams of coke. I really don't want to sit here and talk. So I finally figure out, listen, I'm going to check if this is good. I'll probably be calling you for some more, a little bit more than 8-ball too. Is that cool? She's like, yeah, absolutely. Call me. So speed this along a little bit. I end up buying a couple ounces from her. When I go to buy the couple ounces, we called it in our department, you probably have a different name for it, we called it a yak. When you're starting to do anything that's trafficking level or more, you meet up with the drug dealer ahead of time to talk with them so everybody's a little more comfortable and everybody knows how it's kind of going to go, to ease it up a little bit, just to build that comfort level. So I meet her for a yak. Well, I meet her for what I think is a yak. Apparently she and I were not on the same page on this. She thought it was a date. So I have my close cover blowing up my phone saying, you're on a date. You're using city funds to go on a date. No, it's not what this is. And she's sitting there wearing a long white dress. It's quite clearly she thinks it's a date. I honestly thought the case was going to be trashed right there. Because, well, if she wants to date me, I can't make this work. But we did some things. I introduced my sister into the mix, another UC, so that I have a witness at all times that nothing ever happens between the two of us. And the goal is to get her kind of out of the picture as quick as possible. I didn't know her supplier was a guy I called Mikey. I knew he was connected. Like, I knew, I heard a bunch of rumors. I had informants tell me he's a guy who supplies the celebrities. He can get any amount, anytime. He's the only one allowed to deal in clubs. This is the guy. And I knew that was her supplier. So that was kind of where I wanted to go with this case. I had zero knowledge that there was any kind of mob in Charlotte. Never even occurred. Just had no clue. The stripper I call Summer, she invited me to a guy's birthday party. And I figured, sure, why not? And I bring my sister along. And we get in there, and right out the gate, this was like a movie. This is one few times I was like, all right, I just walk into The Godfather. Right, everybody's done up. Everybody at least wants to appear that they're mopped up. They're given the full look, even to the pinky ring, and definitely was taken back. And I mean, everybody's wearing Armani suit. Like, the money flowing through here is insane. She's a stripper, so that part, all right, that kind of fits. I see where she comes into the play. And then the guy whose birthday it is, Marcos. So then I wanted to introduce you to Marcos. And then I kept hearing everybody say, oh, Marcos, friend of the Greeks. And that's what he's known as, friend of the Greeks. So that kind of threw a little bit of a curveball on me. Like, you just don't hear that. Like, why would they call him friend of the Greeks?
In the darkest of nights, you need a light you can trust. That's why we rely on Streamlight. Whether you're investigating a scene, navigating through uncharted territory, or just need a dependable flashlight for those unexpected moments, Streamlight is your go-to source. With over 45 years of innovation, Streamlight crafts rugged, high-performance flashlights that can withstand the toughest conditions. From tactical torches for law enforcement to everyday carry lights, Streamlight has you covered. Join the Streamlight community today and see why professionals trust Streamlight for their lighting needs. Visit streamlight.com to find your perfect light. Streamlight, lighting your way through the shadows.
As the night goes on and I get to talk to Marcos and I kind of get a file going pretty quick, which I was happy about. And Marcos tells me that, yeah, I architect all the clubs uptown. They're all Greek. And that's kind of how he got friend of the Greeks, that he's the only one allowed to do the clubs. One thing that I didn't throw out, so when I thought this case was ruined and I was on a date, I told her I was a billionaire, just playing around, which don't ever do that. Another really stupid move. I thought the case was ruined. So I was like, I'm just going to have a little bit of fun during this meal and just see how much I could get her to believe. And apparently she bought it hook, line, and sinker. It worked out in a sense because then she got very, very interested in me. Then it was no longer about wanting to date me. It was, well, I just need to be with him so I can get that money. The good part about that is she went and told everybody that we were in a relationship and that we were sleeping together, hands off, he's mine type of thing. The good part about that is all of a sudden that's instant credibility in that scene with everybody kind of thing. Well, he's not a cop. So that paid off to a degree, but she was also made it more complicated. We just had to get her totally out of the picture because I could not be around her at all. It was too risky. Which luckily she ends up kind of moving and going our own way, and it worked out. But I end up getting closer and closer to Marcos. Marcos starts asking me what I do, and I'm kind of just winging everything as I go along. I've never been taught anything about deep cover, long term, anything like that. These kind of cases, everything, the one thing I was taught is you keep everything business, right? You don't ever let anything be personal, because once it's personal, then you're in a lot more danger, because then emotions are involved. As long as it's business, most of the time people just say it is what it is, that type of thing. But once you're going that other route, then it becomes personal. It's a problem. So I decided that I should make this personal, and start becoming Marco's friend. And so Marco's really liking me. We end up going out the next night after that. I'm telling him what I do, that basically I've made a lot of I was a trust fund kid, orphan, made a lot of good investments. And now I start investing in different things. And I might be interested in opening a club in Charlotte. Well, that triggered with him, obviously, right away. That's his forte. And so he starts to tell me, well, if you want to open up a club in Charlotte, I can help you with that. You're going to need my help. You can't just open a club in Charlotte. It doesn't work like that here. He goes, and he ends up pointing out later, but he goes, you have to be sponsored by somebody. And he always used the word sponsor in order to open up a club. And he goes, you can be sponsored by the Greeks, the Italians, or you can have a celebrity sponsor. There were two clubs, and I'm not going to name the celebrities, but two different celebrities that opened up clubs under their name in Charlotte. They were left alone. I'm sure they paid a great deal of financial to be left alone. But he explained to me that unlike New York, the way he described it, in Charlotte, like, let's suppose you get sponsored by the Greeks, they kind of own you. It's not by area where, and I don't know, you may tell me that it's different in New York. He said in New York, it's area. Like, if you're in this area, you've got to pay this group. If you're in this area, you got to pay this. He goes, that's not how we do it in Charlotte. He goes, Charlotte, doesn't matter where you're at, you have to be sponsored by one of these groups. And you could be in the same area as another one. And the Greeks and the Italians work very well together. They also had the Russians involved, and it was always funny. The Russians were for the dirty work. The Russian mob was basically, if they wanted someone killed, it was going to be the Russians that did it. If they wanted a place broken into, it was going to be the Russians. Any kind of dirty work, that's who did it. The drug dealing a lot was with the Russians and some of the Italians. But so he points out this one place, and he goes, it's a bar restaurant, as a sushi place. He says, the best sushi you're going to find on the East Coast right here, hands down. Had they'll be gone in a month because they refused to get sponsored. He said, we approached them, they won't do it. And he says, if you're not sponsored, your permits get messed up, your building gets messed up, everything goes wrong for you constantly. Like, all right, well, that's extortion. So he and I are now hanging out constantly around the Greeks a lot. There were two that I was not allowed to talk to, and they were two of the upper ones. Like, we'd see them around and everything like that. They would talk to Marcos, but I wasn't even allowed to get near him for the longest time. While all this is happening, I haven't forgotten about Mikey, the guy I originally wanted to come after. I've been working my way, and he and I have gotten close as well. So now I kind of got two different, like, it was pain in the butt, to say the least, because I had these two different people that was 24/7 who I was with. Half the time I'd either end up spending the night at one of their places uptown, which, again, nobody do what I did. But Mikey was the one who was close to all the Italians. He definitely was your big time drug dealer. And he was the one, he should have had me so many times and have it done. I think one of the craziest things about long-term deep cover, and the stupid thing that I've done, that feds don't even let you do this, I didn't notice at the time, and really for the most part police departments don't let you do it, is basically when you totally in bed and you never come home. Like, I will go to my grave saying that's the dumbest thing in the world. It's what I always wanted to do. I admit that to this day. And I loved the work itself. Undercover work, when you're in it, like, to me, the high 24/7. It's challenging. It's everything, but it destroys your personal life. Just havoc. So I'm with these guys 24/7 on edge, and there was even a tie. Like, I had cut ties with my police department. I had my sergeant is the only person in the police department who knew where I was and what I was doing. I was now with the FBI, and the FBI told me, you got to cut ties with everybody. You can't tell them what you're doing. Nobody can know where you're at, what you're doing. And now the problem is I have an infant at home and a wife, and she's all been a single mom, but can't even tell anybody where I'm at or what I'm doing. And the other thing that you never ever do is, don't play in your own backyard. Like, if you're doing something, you can't play in your own backyard. But again, not smart. So I played in my own backyard, and every day I was just waiting for the wrong person to see me, and I knew I was dead. I was out with Mikey one night at Craves, this one bar, upscale place, and there was an off-duty cop there with his family. And I hadn't seen him in a couple of years, but he was in patrol in a neighboring district of mine. And I saw him kept looking over at us a lot. And I'm with, Mikey's right next to me and several other Italian people. And he keeps looking over, and it's one of those ones just like, please, it's in our SOPs. If you see an undercover out, you don't approach them unless they approach you first. Like that everywhere. But you also know there's always somebody, right? So I just ignore, hope it goes away. And then I hear Matt, right? And that's not my name in this case. I'm like, oh no, this can't happen. This can't happen. So again, all I can think is just a Nort. Obviously, I'm not going to respond to a name that's supposed to not be mine. Hear it a couple more times, and then I feel the hand on my shoulder. And like, I'm facing Mikey's to my right side, and the hand comes in right on my right shoulder. And it's one of those ones that your stomach just goes like that. And you're like, this is it. Attorney goes, Matt? I said, who? Don't know who you're talking about, man. Sorry. I was like, no, you're Matt and he didn't style. Like, he's with CMPD, which is Charlotte Mecklenburg Police Force. Everybody knows this. I don't know what my face looked like. I would like to say that I was cool. I was calm. I didn't look like anything. But I can't help but believe that I probably had a look of, I'm going to kill you the minute I see you alone. And Mikey came to my rescue like he always did. And he's like, dude, he said he doesn't know you. Leave him alone. And got saved my butt and got the guy totally off. Could not believe it. Mikey, like, and he even told me, he said, you're my best friend. He had grown a real attachment to me. There was one time he had a kilo and some pills and several guns in his book bag, and I meet him, and we're supposed to take my car, and he goes, hey, I don't want to take your car. I've got this bag with this stuff in it. I'm going to put it in the trunk, but I'm putting one of my IDs in it so they can't try to pin it on you if we get stopped. My ID, they have to put it on me, and I'll tell them it's mine as well. Like, he was that, yeah.
Let me ask you a question. And this is probably what a lot of people are thinking. And Dan and I, working in narcotics and the gangs and all that, ran into situations like this, similar to this. You're sitting there, and I think everyone listening to the show is going to think this. You're sitting there. He comes up to you. How many options are running through your head of what you can do right now? Whether you punch him, you just deck him, which has happened, and you start a fight. I mean, that's happened in narcotics, in all that. That's happened where our undercovers has started fights with people that were, hey, what's up, bro? In the middle of something. Or did you have enough? Let me ask you this. Did you have enough to arrest them at that point?
So, yeah, I had Mikey all day long at this point. I had bought in total probably about a half kilo from him at this point. So I had charges on him.
Well, that's an option.
Yeah, so that was an option. I knew at least two people there were armed that were with Mikey. So starting a fight, I was worried that could go down a really bad road. My thought was, if it goes wrong and I get the sense that I'm not being believed afterwards, like however this ends with this cop, if I feel like my cover is now gone, I'm gonna either come with you, say I'll be right back, and just call it, be gone, or just take off running. Right?
Which there's nothing wrong with, man.
I've got to take off running one a couple times. It's like, I'll tell you the other story here. Well, I'll skip around and tell them now. So I'm with Mikey again, and we go to a big party that's a celebrity party. And I mean, who's who is at this party? You have your Italians at the party, a few Greeks. You have athletes at this party, and you have actors, musicians. I mean, you name it. This is just a who's who type thing. And he is a supplier for anybody at this party that wants some. So we go together. I knew there was a potential that somebody from my high school could be at this party. Yes, my high school back in Pennsylvania. This person was on The Bachelor and was a finalist. So she had kind of a little bit of that celebrity status. Now, I hadn't seen her since I was in 8th grade. So I was like, I think it was 8th grade. I may be wrong, but it may have been 9th grade. But I was like, there is no way I look the same. I like to think that. I mean, I was 5'8" at the time, and I'm at least 5'8.5" now. So it's completely different. So I kidded myself, or I made myself believe that there's no way she would recognize me. And keep in mind, there is, it's a huge house, but there's 300 plus people at this thing. So I'm there. I'm with Mikey, and then I get up at one point and say, hey, I'm going to go get a drink from the kitchen. I'll be right back. So I go to get a beer, and she's in the kitchen when I get the beer. No big deal. A lot of people in there. I felt like she didn't even pay attention to me until I, again, hear my real name. Getting real sick of hearing my real name. And I hear it again several times. So I get my beer, and I hightail it out of the kitchen. Mikey's hanging out in this huge media room in the back. I'm like, you know what? I bet you I can just stay with him the whole night and just hang up here, and I'll never see her again. Piece of cake. So I really was not worried. So I go to the very back of this media room, sit down with him, and we start chilling. And then within 3 minutes, I see my friend from high school and 2 of her girlfriends walk into the media center, look up where we are at, and make their way to sit down right in front of us, in front of this huge auditorium type media room. So at this point, I'm like, this sucks. So now I got to think, all right, I need a strategy to get out because things are probably about to go bad. I've now seen him give dope to a lot of people that would not want it out there that they just got dope. So if I don't make it to that door, it's a bad day for me. Now, media room, you go down the stairs, it exits to the left right there, and then there's sliding doors, and there's woods at the back of the house right there. So that's the game plan, right? This goes wrong. I make it down those stairs to that sliding door. Hopefully that thing opens with ease because I'm flying through it. So they sit down in front of us, and I hear whispering back and forth. Can't tell what they're saying, but they're definitely whispering back and forth. Her and her friends. And I'm like, this is not good. So our one friend then leans back and whispers to Mikey. So now, now it's the question, all right, do I go ahead and make this move now? Do I take off? Because the gate is quite possibly up. And at this point, I'm thinking, all right, Mikey's already saved my butt once. He's not going to save it again. Hey, why 2 times would he be called by this other person? It's over. So they whisper for a second and then excuse the language, but all of a sudden I hear Mikey say, how the fuck would I know? Why don't you just ask him? I was like, are you kidding, Mikey? You're doing this for me again? So sure enough, they asked me, where are you from? Now, my cover story is very close to what my actual story is, just the orphan and slightly different location. So wasn't sure if I was going to make it out of that because I said, Pennsylvania. And then I said, I'm from an orphanage, Masonic home up there. And she was like, oh, she thought you were somebody she went to high school with. Did you go to high school? And I said, well, I went to high school. It's basically like a homeschooling at the Masonic home. And she's like, oh, well, they can't be you. Kind of just like that. And then I see them jump on their phones and they're jumping on Facebook. And I know I'm not friends with her on Facebook. I am worried, can there be any kind of crossovers or any picture out there that she could get her hands on? And that's a wrap for me. Luckily, no. It was a lot. At that time, I'd always kept my Facebook locked down. Plus, at that time, I didn't have really any pictures on of me. I ended up getting out of there the next day. I said, if you have me tagged in any photo and a photo of me, please remove it from Facebook immediately. But luckily, Mikey had saved my butt again that time. Mikey and I, like I said, we got very, very close. Same with Marcos. So as the case progressed, it took quite some time to get to that point where, I paid Marcos $5,000 for him just to work with me. Then I had to pay him another $5,000 that went to the Greeks, and then I was paying him another $5,000. And after I paid him that $5,000, the very next night, he calls me and is like, "Hey, come pick me up. We're going to Sunset." And that was literally what he said. "Come pick me up. We're going to Sunset." That wasn't Marcos. Marcos was always, usually drunk, and then always really happy, wants to talk kind of thing. I want to say giggly, if that's a horrible word to use for this, but always in a really good mood, laughing kind of thing. So that was a red flag for me when it was just that the mood change was so dramatic. And keep in mind, to this point, I had spent, Christmas with his family, his two daughters, Thanksgiving with his daughters, and him. Literally, his daughters would call me if they had a problem. So Marcus and I had become very, very close. I'd spent the night at Marcus on his couch, Margaret, many times. So I was pretty taken back by this. Go call him when I get there. I was like, "You want me to come up, or you just want to come down to the car?" And he's like, "No, I'm on my way down." Again, very quick. Gets in the car. Like, even as he's walking to the car, there's like the different kind of walks people have can tell you a lot about how they're feeling and everything else. And his walk is not his walk. It's just a very cold, angry walk almost. And he gets in the car. We drive, and he's not saying a word. He finally makes one comment, something exactly what it was, but something along the lines of, "Where'd you say you're from again?" It was just an oddball thing to say. As much time as we spent together at this point and everything else, I knew just was not right. And I told him the same thing up. I said, "Everything all right?" "Yes." Just like that. All right. Well, that means everything's not all right. And he's always like, he wouldn't get many phone calls. But if he did, he just pick it up normal. But whenever you get a text message, he wasn't one that would try to hide it. Like, he'd be flat out, you could always see what he was typing and what the text was. Well, now he's kind of turning to the side and making sure I can't see a text message. And he's getting quite a bit of them back and forth. So obviously my heart rate is getting higher and higher at this point. Sunset, the club we're going to, is a Greek club. It's the low-key Greek club, which doesn't make it feel any better. Like, it's kind of a back bar almost, if you will. So we get there. We've been there 1,000 times before. Usually we get there and we go sit wherever we want and do our thing. And this was like a Tuesday or Wednesday, so it's not a popular night, not like it's crowded. We get there, and the hostess, who we know, this time she's like, "Oh, I've got your seats ready. Follow me." That was a huge red flag for me, because that's never happened. It's not a place where you have seats. And she takes us to the far end of the bar and sits us there, where I know right behind us is their surveillance office, basically. All it has is a curtain covering it, and they have the cameras in there. But literally, you're sitting just outside that other curtain. I was positive there has to be somebody sitting right there, and that's why they put us there. It's the only explanation. Once again, we get a glass of wine, 2 cigars. Marcos is constantly on his phone. Again, he'll just ask me an occasional question, "How much money are you worth?" Like, just weird questions. To the point where now I'm thinking, okay, I'm probably burned, or something's gone wrong. I'm going to have to try to either talk my way out of this or get out. So he steps away a couple times and takes phone calls. He's not taking the phone calls next to me. Then he comes back, hasn't even finished a glass of wine, which, within a half hour, this is a guy that normally has probably put down 5 glasses of wine in that amount after he had got through half. Hasn't even finished a cigar. He's like, come on, we're leaving. We're headed uptown. Get back in the car, and he goes, we'll park at my place, and then we're going to walk over to the Epicenter and go hang out there at the one club. All right. So, not saying a word, still getting text messages. We get to his place, we get out of the car, walk over to the Epicenter, and the Epicenter is 3 different stories. And we get to the second story, and he says, hold on a second. And he walks away, he gets on the phone, comes back and says, come on, we're going back to my place. He goes, we're going to have a glass of wine at my place. Reality, I should have ran at this point. That nothing had gone right about this night. I know something was up. A smart man would have bolted. But I didn't. I went back to his place. We get up to his condo. His condo, this is a high-rise condo, and his is almost at the top, very close to the top. Jose, every time I've been to his place, he always leaves all the lights on, and every door in this place is always on, all the lights on. He opens the door, and it's pitch black. I can't say anything. This isn't good. I said, go make yourself comfortable on the couch. I'm going to get a glass of wine. Walk in, flip on that light, and all the doors are closed. There's a bathroom to the right. Like when you walk in, little hallway, kitchen is to the right. Just past that is the bathroom, and then the living room straight ahead to you. The left is where his bedroom is, and the bathroom off of that. Past the living room is a sliding door that lead out to the balcony. I walked straight out to the balcony and wanted to look down because I was confident I was going to be doing a swan dive off of this at some point during the night. I look out there, and I did, in my infinite wisdom, about most of the way down, there was a pool off to the side. I thought I could aim for that pool, hit the water, and who knows, it would have definitely killed me. But it's better than hitting cement, I think. So again, I have a seat on the couch, and then he comes in and starts drilling me at this point. What's your name again? And it's only 20, 25 questions. He will ask them different ways, but it's the same thing. Who are you banking with? I need to see your banking. Where do you have these investments? Who are these investments? And then he'll go on and say, you understand, if you're not who you say you are, you got us both killed. He said, you could be putting my whole family in danger if you're not who you say you are. They really just hammering. And then a couple of times he went into his bedroom, and he did the perp bedroom thing, or the perp door. You always know when you knock on that door and you barely see your head, or they try to slide through that door so that you can't see in at all. That's what he would do coming in out there. So there was no question that there were people in that room. So we go over these questions, and we do this till about 6 o'clock in the morning. I know it's 6 because I see the sun coming up. Like it's actually getting light outside when this finally stops. And he goes into the bedroom one last time, goes out and says, all right, you can go. I'll call you later. And that's it. I didn't know what to think at this point. I mean, part of me is relieved that I'm actually getting out of this condo. I get down to my car, and my car had been gone through. The glove box was open, center console open, paper sign. It wasn't that they tried to hide it. They wanted it to be obvious, I think. I sat there for a second with the key in the ignition and say, do I really want to turn this? But I did, and then drove aimlessly for a little bit, did a bunch of heat checks because I was positive they had me following, just the way that night was. I did not. They may have been better than me. I didn't catch anybody following me. I still can't believe they wouldn't have been the way the night was. But head to the apartment, and then pretty much as soon as I park, he calls. He's like, all right, come on, come back to Uptown Cabaret. We're good. And his voice was different. It was back to his normal voice. Uptown Cabaret was our normal hangout spot. It was a strip club that we would meet there at 8 o'clock in the morning and spend there until sometime in the afternoon every single day. By the way, don't ever go to a strip club during the day if you want to keep any imagination left in your head of what a strip club is like. Because if the lights are on and you're there, it's over. I haven't been to one since.
So, Matt, quick
Yeah.
question. When you're that deep undercover and running an operation, you don't even have a field team, right?
No. So
There's no one who knew you were there. Did anyone know
I
you were
had
there?
one contact that I would make contact with, let them know not exactly where I was at, just that, hey, I'm uptown at the moment. That was the extent. And I talked to the FBI, and my original handlers with the FBI in this case were good people. I think they're disappointed in how this case went, like I am. But basically, I was told, your close cover's real responsibility is body recovery. They said there's no point lying to you. You got to know the truth. I mean, there's no way to have close cover. It's impossible. And I don't disagree with that. I appreciate honesty rather than, oh, we got your back if something happens. Come on. I don't know.
How'd the case go down? Was this the end of the case?
My
much?
part. So I brought in a money man, a guy that I introduced that he does the money for me. It took a long way. I mean, you guys know the Fed process. One, they had to make it a Group 1 case. So you know how long it takes for it to become a Group 1 case. Then after it became a Group 1, that's when they finally got to look for an undercover from the program to bring in with me. And then it took about 6 months to find the undercover that they wanted. And then from there, you know how hard it can be to introduce somebody in. I've been dealing with these guys. Why all of a sudden am I bringing in a money man? It's just not an easy process. So it took a long time. Like, I thought when I first met with the FBI, I told them I needed to get out as quickly as possible. I said, I will get this case torched. I said, there's just too many. I live here. It's going to happen. Too many people know me. I mean, Charlotte's big, but it's not that big. And they agreed. But the way things work, sometimes it takes longer than you would hope. So it took about 2 years to get me out. So the money guy is in, and the case went on for another 3 years. At the end of the case, the only real person that was arrested was the mayor of Charlotte. And I can tell you there were numerous other charges on other people that to this day I don't understand. Well, I do, I just don't talk about it. But there were a lot of other people that should have been arrested that committed way worse crimes than that. And if you look at, you can go and look at the case, the mayor did not cooperate at all. And he got a sugar deal, an unbelievable great deal. So if you looked in, I was surprised no news outlet actually ever looked into it, because even if you look at the time frames, you could tell things are missing that aren't talked about.
What happened to Mikey and Carlos?
So sadly, and this is sad, and I tried to get him not to do it. Mikey, this was getting ready when I think Brazil was getting ready to hold the Olympics. Mikey thought he could make a killing. He could get a new drug connect down there and make a killing during the Olympics. I told him that it's a different world. If you don't know somebody, that's an easy place to just disappear. And it kind of seemed like that's exactly what happened. I think he got himself killed. I mean, yeah.
So, Matt, you could probably, we could sit on this call with you for hours, and we'd love to have you back because there's a couple of cases we want to talk about more. But you just went through something that it's a common thread in anyone who has done undercover work at your level, and very few have. It's the enormous stress and tension. And I could feel the tension as you were describing how you felt that night as he suddenly changed. Because he can't hide the fact that he now has serious doubts about you, and he's seeing everything that he has built in his criminal enterprise dying because of this guy who I became friends with and I trusted. So then it becomes almost like a man-to-man trust thing, more than a criminal to an undercover. I trusted you. I made you my friend. I brought you into my world. I took care of you. And you turn your back on me in the biggest way somebody could. Totally lied to them about everything. to put them in prison and to have them lose everything. So there's got to be a lot of mixed emotions you had about that. This is a guy that bailed you out twice.
Actually, it was the other guy that bailed me out, but yeah, Marcos though, yeah, but Marcos, like, I mean, yeah, it's like I always, because even after I made it through that night, and I passed, I knew at the end of this case, he was going to be in trouble. Like I knew he'd have a hit out. I mean, he did the unspeakable. He vouched for me. He didn't vet me the way he was supposed to. It was bad. I know he moved to another country for some time after the case officially ended. I do believe he's back in the United States, so I'm hoping I'm hoping he's doing well and everything is fine with him.
You know what I noticed, and I said this at the beginning of the show, the privilege we've had to have so many high-level undercovers on the show, and I named them before. And the one commonality in all of you, which in my mind is an absolute gift. Everyone we've had, from Jay to Lou, Giovanni, Dutch, others, everyone's run into that one situation of, oh crap, I'm done. And the amount of calm that all of you had in probably the most stressful part of that case is amazing. We heard all the stories with everyone I just mentioned had that situation, and you were no different. You staying calm saved your life. You panic in an apartment, it's up, their level goes higher, you're done. And same thing with the others. And that is a gift, man. That is something that is not taught. You can't teach that. That is just something you have inside you and a gift, and thank God you had it.
Well, I found that wearing Depends helps out a lot, so I can keep myself.
I mean, even to the point, I'm sorry, Dad, just one more thing. Just even to the point of looking at the balcony going, wow, this is going to hurt. I mean,
a few brain cells. It's funny because I still, I'm sure you've talked about obviously I'm dealing with some, and I'm getting much, much better, some mental health stuff. But that's one of the ones that I relive all the time, and that image of looking down off that balcony is one that I can't get rid of.
Well, these are traumatic events, no different than other critical events in the lives of members of law enforcement and the military. And thank you for telling this story. We have more. We will visit with you again if
I'd love
you will
to.
let us.
Absolutely.
Because there's other stuff in your background I want to get into. It's just so we don't want to short shrift anything because it's amazing stories. But you are a great storyteller and you lived it, and it's an honor to meet you. And thank you so much for coming on and sharing your story, this piece of your story, about how you got to be where you are. And wow, it takes people like you doing this work to really infiltrate and really root out these deeply seated criminal organizations. And it takes cojones, and you have that, and thank you for that. I mean, just wow. I don't even know what else to say except I respect you immensely, and as somebody who couldn't do what you did, I respect you.
Oh, thank you, but you guys deserve credit too. Like I said, I looked at your resume, so I'm equally impressed. I promise that.
I wrote a lot of parking tickets. That's all I did.
Okay. Yep. You know what? We're gonna have a part 2 to this. This is part 1 of Matt Pitcher for sure, because there's another case that we're gonna talk to Matt about, which is another incredible investigation and undercover operation. And we really do want to get into the mental health part of your life, which we are wrapped in and is important to us. So we're going to do a part 2 of Matt Pitcher for sure. But for now, Matt, thank you, echoing Danny, for everything you've done and trying to make things safer for people and getting bad guys off the street. And you did it at a level that is dangerous and should be recognized. And thank you so much, on top of thanking you for joining us today.
Thank you both. I appreciate that very much. Thank you.
And for not being afraid to be open, as Tom and I are, about the struggles that we've had with the experiences that we've faced in our career. It takes that level of openness and candor to break down stigmas, to help the men and women who do this important work seek out the help so they can go on with the next chapter of their life whole and in a good place.
100% agree with
And
that.
so thank you for that
I
as
think we
well.
have a responsibility to help others learn from our mistakes.
Absolutely. Tom, we I can't wait for episode 2 with Matt. He's
I will definitely.
more than entertaining and just you can tell a great soul, and we're thrilled to call you a friend now, Matt. And we're gonna have you back, we know that. But until then, Tom, why don't you take us out as you always do, so eloquently?
Thank you. At this point in the show, we give thanks and pray for our law enforcement officers, undercovers, detectives, uniform guys, all of them on top of our military vets. There's jobs out there that people don't know about that they put their lives on the line every single day, not only just in uniform, but in operations like Matt just explained. And they need our prayers. They need our support. So make sure every time you say one, you go to church, think of our law enforcement and military members out there doing a thankless job. Wave to them, pat them on the back, buy them a meal if they're in a store, something to show your appreciation, because you have no idea what a wave does maybe on a bad day. It means a lot. So make sure you do that. And our normal ending plug, youtube.com/@goldshields, Rumble, all our audio channels, and our website, thegoldshieldshow.com, and Instagram @thegoldshieldshow. Matt Pitcher, it was an absolute pleasure and honor for you being here. My partner, Dan Murphy. This is Tom Smith for part 1 of Matt Pitcher, and we'll see everybody soon. Stay safe.